anything you want to say, babes?
I just want to say thank you very much to everyone that's out there fighting for me. Seeing this come together, and the support has been amazing. I've got a table full of rock stars here that are all working tirelessly around the clock fighting for this cause with me. And I just want all you guys out there across the world to know that I'm going to justify your effort, and I'm going to come back stronger and bigger and badder. And once I get back on my feet, we're going to justify all this. Make sure that all you guys' efforts don't go unnoticed. We're going to come together and have a huge, huge party.
Sookie now. Hell yeah. I know my dogs are watching, and if you ain't, I know you will be. And if you are watching and you ain't my dog yet, you will be, because I'm here to help you get busy living. What's that? Well, for me, that's one epic adventure every single month for 55 months in a row. But for you, that's tuning in every Thursday at 9 Eastern to our Get Busy Living podcast YouTube channel, so we can help you figure out how to live a purposeful, intentional, deliberate life. But sometimes you might not. You know why? Because, man, I talk too much, or I don't know what I'm talking about, or the show sounds like crap, or you just don't like what's going on. And you know what? If you do, don't tell us, because we don't want to hear you complain about it. Why? Because people hate hearing people complain. They say, don't tell me what's wrong with your day, because nobody wants to hear about it anyway. That's what we're going to talk about this week. But first, since nothing is worth having if it ain't worth sharing, help me welcome to the stage, out of Los Angeles, the author and co-pilot of this podcast, the dynamic D-Rex.
What did you just call me? All right. Enough of this nonsense.
It's never the same.
Here.
I thought about rehearsing it, but then I'm like, no, because it's never the same place.
Well, I am happy to be here, regardless of what you say about me. I'm very happy to be soon joining you in Phoenix, Arizona this weekend. Going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
I am excited about complaining. That's a weird thing to say. And I feel really weird about having this title above our heads, Scratching Itches. That what is this podcast about? Scratching itches. That's a little strange.
It's a little bit cryptic, isn't it? I like it cryptic.
Yeah. But you know what? I do think that the need to complain does feel like an itch you need to scratch. And it's really important for us to dive into this, because it's not exactly the healthiest thing to do, but there are reasons that we do it. And it's really interesting to actually think about it rather than just letting yourself do it, you know?
Yeah. And that's, we've delved into a lot of off the wall topics, and it's like, what does that have to do with getting busy living? They're all things, raising awareness, being self-aware. All of these things are ingredients to living a purposeful, deliberate, intentional life, and trying to minimize the things that can set you back. To me, that's about getting busy living, being conscious about it. And so that's why I like to pick apart things about life and talk about them. So hopefully we can offer some perspective, because, a lot of the things that we've talked about are things that are present in every single day of or every second of our lives. But if we don't consciously think about them, we don't realize that sometimes they're holding us back. And complaining.
Yeah. That's the amazing thing about trying to plan a podcast or planning anything where you're going to have to film it, but you have to plan it out first, and you have to do some research, and you're forced to write it down. Boy, does that force you to actually think about something. You think that you can just sit around and think about something and come to some conclusion. But when you write it out, you are forced to reckon with, is this a complete thought? Does this make sense? And as I started writing down questions to myself about the need to complain, it really started to open up like an onion, a really smelly onion.
Bizzy.
Yeah, because complaining is that it's a very smelly onion, filled with many layers. But underneath it is a problem to solve, right? Not all problems can be solved. We were just talking right before we went live about how you were saying that sometimes you're complaining to yourself about things you can't even control. And so sometimes at the center of the onion is something that you can't even do anything about. So why do we still feel the need to complain? It's interesting.
Well, let's start with why we're talking about complaining. Each week, because we're trying to help push the agenda here. We picked something out of the Life in a Year of Swedism's book that is time sensitive. That means something that we're going to be that would come up in the book at this time of year. And this week, February 20th, 2015, the choice out of the Life in a Year of Swedism's book was a post that I put about complaining. It says, if only everyone would quit their bitching and start scratching all the places they're complaining are itching, the world would be filled with many better places and we could all enjoy the look on each other's faces. Because after it's all said and done, it's a great day to be alive. And this book is a part of the goal of ours to bring stem cells to the living rooms of America and beyond. And it's all in an effort to try to make an impact the way that my life was impacted. And so if you know someone that could use some assistance or that could benefit from stem cells, send an email to nominations@thehswa.org and tell us their story. We asked this back when we first launched the podcast back in 2022, and we received an email, and our buddy Schaefer became our first nominee. And the reason that this book is a part of this process is proceeds from the book will afford us the opportunity to send Schaefer to get stem cells that we know can have a positive impact on his life. And so go to the hswa.org, reserve your copy. Once we have 1,000 copies, we ship, we send Schaefer to Panama, and we take a name out of the hat, and we're sending somebody to Alaska. So this book is just a means, or bringing this post up is just a means of mentioning the book, but it also helps us think about the things that that hold us back. And the Life in a Year of Swedism's book oftentimes will remind you about things that are. There's not much worse than somebody that complains all the time, but there's reasons that we complain. There's good and bad things that come of it. And there's some psychology involved with why we complain. And what we want to talk about today is not just why we complain and how it hurts us, but what to do about it, and how to take advantage of the things that we are complaining about and flip that into a positive, but also how to minimize complaining if we're not the type of people that can do that. And one of my favorite all-time quotes, if it's not my all-time favorite quote, it's one of them, comes from Reinhold Niebuhr. And a lot of people think that this is biblical. It actually is not a biblical quote, although in the original version of the quote, there is some "Oh God" and some Jesus in there. But the meat of the quote says, grant us the serenity of mind to accept that which cannot be changed, courage to change that which can be changed, and wisdom to know one from the other. So it's been requoted and it's been moved around a little bit. It's now called the Serenity Prayer. But it was originally from this guy was a journalist, I believe, or maybe just a writer. But the original quote became popularized in the 40s, and now it's all over pop culture as the Serenity Prayer, because in the beginning of the quote he asked Jesus wisdom to know one from the other. And I believe that this is relevant because when it comes to complaining, in that post, you see it says, stop bitching and start scratching those things that need itching. It's about knowing what things you can fix. And the things that you can't fix, not to complain about it. But there actually are some utilities from complaining.
That's true.
And one of the things that I found interesting when I started looking into the psychology of complaining is there's a distinction between a complaint and a criticism, and it lies in the degree of which the expression of a given statement subserves a personal goal, either intrapsychic or interpersonal. So, for example, if you were to say something along the lines of one of the examples he's talking about being a sports fan, like if you complain about your favorite team. Well, if your favorite team is, you're in LA, so if your favorite team is the Dodgers, and you say, the Dodgers played like crap yesterday, then if you're a fan of the Dodgers, it feels like a complaint. You're complaining about your favorite team. But if you're not a fan of the Dodgers, well, then it's just a critique. It's like, oh, that team. So if it's not personal, it's not as much of a complaint. It's as it is a critique. But if it's personal, then it's a complaint. And the thing is that the reason that, complaining is so widely discouraged is because, nobody wants to hear about your problems. We all have our own problems. So if you're the type of person that's chronically complaining about the weather or about the traffic, those are the two things that I will shut you down with the quickness. If you come to me if I see you on a regular basis and the first few things that you talk to me about are about how it's too hot or there's too many cars on the road, it's like, man, is today your first day in this city? Is today your first day in traffic? I can't stand people that complain about traffic. Ugh, there's no utility.
Yeah, I think that's just a conversational mechanism for people. And I think that's definitely something to watch out for, is that complaining isn't a conversational mechanism that you fall back on. And I think that I might have used to do that when I was a bit younger. I noticed that my speech was a little bit on the negative side. I haven't been able to really clear my throat today. My speech was always kind of like negatively tinged. It was negative words, and there was not a lot in the sentence. And I tried to turn it around. It's taken years and years. And I think that that's important, is that if you would like to stop being negative and stop complaining, it's a gradual process. It's not a matter of tomorrow I stop complaining. It's just not going to happen that way. All change takes time. And if you are going to, I guess you're going to have some advice about how to stop complaining. I know I have a few pieces of advice eventually. But if you're going to work on this and stop your, what did you say? What's the quote?
Stop bitching and start scratching. Things you're complaining are itching.
If you're going to do that, it's a process.
Thus that overlay. It is.
Yeah. Although it seems like this might be a medical podcast. But yeah, you have to take time, and you have to be forgiving of yourself as you go through this process. And eventually you'll come out the other side a more positive person and a lot more fun to be around.
Absolutely. And let's start with that though. Okay. So the impact of complaining on your mental health, first and foremost, there are reasons that you should go out of your way to avoid complaining. And psychological effects of complaining on a regular basis. First of all, negativity bias. Like if you are the type of person that is always complaining, then you're programming and conditioning yourself to be attracted to the downside of situations. And what does that do? Well, it's somewhat like you're just going to surround yourself with negativity all the time. You're going because it's self-talk that you have and the negativity in your head, you're going to be more inclined to be attracted to situations that are negative. So you're going to watch bad news, or you're going to watch shows that are about tense and negative things. And then what happens is you just create this negativity bias in your life where it seems like everything is always negative. And it very much is a super slippery slope. It's crazy the things you learn about research topics like this. I've learned so much about all of these topics that we've covered. And that's one of the things that I found really interesting. Like, wow, if you're the type of person that complains a lot, then whether it's critiquing or complaining, you are going to be psychologically programming yourself to be attracted to things that you can complain about.
Yeah, training your brain is a real thing. It's a real thing. And it's trained through repetition. And if you don't mind me making a piano teacher reference. So I teach a lot of children piano, right? And some children are very impatient and they want to go through the song as fast as possible, but you cannot do that because you have to learn it. So sometimes they'll end up making the same mistake over and over again, and then they'll stop, fix the note, and move on. you cannot allow yourself to make the mistake in the first place, because what you're doing is you're training your brain to go to the mistake first, fix it, and move on. And it's the same thing with the complaining. You're training yourself that it's okay to go to the complaint first, and then maybe you can like make light of it afterwards and move on, but still your brain is going to go right to the complaining first. You have to train your brain, and it's a little bit like an addiction, don't you think? You have to train your brain away from it over and over again until you're able to move away from the complaining. It's pardon me. It's a, like, what do you say, a slippery slope?
Yeah.
Because if you even get close to it, you're down the cliff, right?
Yeah. And one of the terms that I came across in my research was emotional contagion. Like it can actually infiltrate the rest of your emotions, and it can make you less likely to laugh. How interesting is that?
Oh.
Complaining makes you less likely to laugh. It can make you less likely to love, and also it blocks your ability to learn because you're so preoccupied with this angst and this discomfort or this dissatisfaction that you're not taking in information. How crazy is that? Something so minor as a complaining habit can actually impact your ability to love, to laugh, and to learn. How about that?
Yeah. And I mean, those are like the main pillars of life, right?
Yeah. We were just talking before the show, and it's not really about complaining, but we were just talking about what things you're preoccupied or obsessed with. And I was talking about what life would be like if my brain just naturally wandered to making money or getting wealthy, or or getting super fit. Like I do care about my health and I do care about my wealth, but I'm not obsessed about it, and my brain doesn't naturally wander there all the time. And what about those people that their brain just naturally wanders to complaining, and the fact that
I've known these people.
Throughout the course of their lives, they're going to be less likely to be laughing, less likely to be loving, and less likely to be learning because they're just complaining a lot. That's crazy that it can poison you like that.
I have a thought, a little thought experiment I just want you to think about. Okay, so you know how you have something you want to complain about, and now you have somebody to listen to it, and you want to complain. And you know how people say, I just need to vent, right? What would happen if you didn't vent? What if you chose not to in that moment? What would happen?
Oh, I thought you meant if you said that to them. Like if they came up to you and said, I just need to vent, and you were like, what would happen if you didn't? And you just like hand in the face, no venting. No, sorry, no venting today. We're closed for venting. Come back on Tuesday if you want to vent.
No, that would be your own brain that does that. Now I'm saying, what would happen if you used your own brain to stop yourself and say, what would happen if you didn't say it? I would almost guarantee you that nothing would happen. You don't actually need to vent. That's my position. I actually think that it doesn't make things better. You feel heard by your friends when you vent, but it didn't change anything. It didn't solve anything, and it probably brought your friends down in mood.
So I've got this list of negative impacts of complaining on your mental health. I'm going to jump through this because
let's do that.
at the end of this, I want to talk about playing the devil's advocate. And because for those of you that when you look in the mirror, you see a complainer and you're being honest with yourself, and you are one of those people. And believe me, I'm going to tell you that some days I am.
I was that person yesterday.
We're not bashing you, and I'm not bashing you, the complaining version of you, Swede. I'm not bashing you. But I'm going to encourage you to be cognizant of it and try to minimize it for these reasons. Number one, like I already talked about, negativity bias and this emotional contagion where it can infect your life. But there's stress and cortisol levels go up, and that actually has a physical impact on so many things in your life. Your fatigue, you can be tired, you can be chronically tired. You can have people that have higher cortisol levels and consult your doctor. I'm not pointing the finger at anyone, but that's a risk factor for a lot of things. And believe it or not, people that have high levels of stress and thus high cortisol levels have cardiovascular issues. They have more likely to have autoimmune diseases. So these are things that there's chemical feedback loops in your body that happen from cortisol being too prevalent in your body. But I'm not sure, like you said, this is not a medical podcast, but that's one thing. And then there are social dynamics. People, if you get a reputation for being a complainer, then you might be less likely to be invited. Nobody, and the victim mentality, the mental health part of this, there's a victim mentality that if you're the type of person that complains a lot, you can program yourself to thinking that you're a victim all the time. And that just undercuts all of your progress. All of your getting busy little bubbles that we're trying to get you to blow here are going to be you're de-emphasized. And if you view yourself as a victim. And then the last thing that I have on the list here is the impact on your problem solving skills. If you are constantly complaining, you are subconsciously programming yourself to not fix things. And that's what that post was about back in 2015. It was about start scratching those itches that you're bitching about. Don't just let them be, and if it's something if it's an itch you can't scratch, if you can't get to work without getting in traffic, don't complain about the traffic, and we all have to deal with the weather. We're all in this together. We're all in this same weather. So complaining about it isn't going to get you anywhere. Don't get me wrong. If you're going on vacation next week and you're like, oh man, it's going to be cold where I'm going. Okay, complain about it, but don't complain the whole time you're there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, those things there are actual clinical issues that come up with people that are chronic complainers. But
I think there's also a learned helplessness in there too. When you complain about everything and you feel like you've vented and you haven't solved anything, you're just you behave in a helpless way. You didn't actually do anything, and you might feel that you need to keep complaining about it. I think that a lot of people think that their complaining is actually productive. And
well, let's go there.
Okay.
Let's talk about that, because when I'm complaining and when we are complaining, there are a couple angles about complaining that can be helpful. First of all, if you're complaining about something, it can be a problem that actually does need fixed. And you could, by bringing it up to other people, you may be bringing it up to the right person that actually can fix it. Like if you are at a restaurant and your steak is cooked wrong and you're going to pay $50 for this piece of steak, it should be cooked the way you want it. Or even if it's not, you could be going to Burger King and they're supposed to make it your way. You paid for it. They're supposed to make it that way. If you complain about it, they can possibly fix it. So there are some utilities to complain.
Solution. Yeah.
Right. When it's a legitimate complaint and it's to the right person that actually can fix the problem. But if the chronic complaining is where the mental health issues can come up. And that's, and so also when you're complaining to yourself, if you're not the type of person that if you never complain to yourself, then you might be oblivious to the fact that you have problems in your life. So complaints can help you identify things that need fixed in your own life as well. So I don't want to, I'm not going to spend the rest of the podcast saying go be a complainer, but we should acknowledge before we move into, how there's drawbacks to normalizing complaining. We should say that there are utilities to complaining where there are some positives to come from it.
I like that part where you said complaining to the right person is productive. But how many of us do that? We're often complaining just to our friends or people who are on the phone, people who will listen, the person behind us in line. Complaining to the right person is definitely an important part of actually solving problems.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about not mentioning it to someone if you're riding with somebody in their car and the air conditioner is up too high and you're freezing, or vice versa, if the air conditioner is not on at all and you're baking. Then you can say, hey, would you mind, like, if I can I fix this air conditioning?
Well, that doesn't sound like a complaint.
Yeah, that's kind of a request, So at that little pause there, I want to say hello. If you're in the comments section, please speak up to us. Lori, thank you for showing up. I'm glad you recognize I got the Shaver Squad hoodie on, by the way. I'm curious to know what you mean by this, Lori. Hands yellow, heart red. hands yellow, heart red. Any ideas, D-Rex, what Lori's
I
talking
wonder
about?
if
Lori,
that's
by all
maybe
means,
an
if you're still with us,
emoji.
listen.
It might be an emoji that doesn't come through.
Ooh. And maybe she's saying that in reference to the Schaefer Squad hoodie instead of the topic. Maybe that's what she's talking about. But since we're on that topic, I'm glad that you mentioned it, Lori. I got a little something for you here. Uh-oh. What happened? Oh, it's the wrong one. See, I'm definitely not the best at this. What happened here? Oh, I removed that video earlier. Whoa, there's two of me on screen.
Wow. I'd like to lodge a complaint.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Oh, there it is.
Are you the right person?
Yes. Let's hear it. Right after this. Oh, Sookie now. Schaefer Squad merch is here. Show your support. Go to the hswa.org and click on the menu dots where you'll find the donate tab that leads to the Schaefer Squad merch link. Scroll past the greeting to find our wide range of Schaefer Squad merch, from adult tees, kid tees, onesies, and beanies for the babies, adult hoodies, hats and kicks, an apron for the cook, a hoodie for the pet, and a puzzle for the family. All prices include the outrageous cost of shipping, and all proceeds go toward helping Schaefer get a potentially life-changing stem cell treatment. And this just in, check out the new Schaefer Squad scarf coming soon to a viral video near you. You gotta believe. And always remember, we're all in this together.
You can see it when you see me, but you gotta believe me. Ain't nothing coming easy my way. No, I work for this.
Hell yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, Lori. The Schaefer Squad gear. This is honestly my favorite piece of clothing that I own. And so, yeah, please go to hswa.org and get you some Schaefer Squad gear. I am getting orders on a regular basis, I'm happy to say. So thank you for your support. We very much appreciate it. We're climbing slow. It's a slow climb. It is a slow climb, but we're glad to be on our way, and we appreciate every single bit of the support that you guys show us. And oh, hey, what's up, girl? Hey, Rochelle, good to see you. Thanks for showing up. Always glad to see our Erieites supporting the cause. Back to the subject here. There are drawbacks to normalizing complaints that I would like to talk about also. If you are the type of person that doesn't scratch that itch and just prefers to complain all the time, we've talked about how it can impact you in ways that you would never imagine unless you had seen this podcast or you had caught online somewhere that somebody was showing you about complaining. I actually read an article that I'm gonna put got a little graphic up here that kind of talks about it. So this article by Robin Kowalski talks about complaints and complaining, the functions, antecedents, and consequences of it. And it's a very interesting article. Really couldn't be happier about reading this article now, because I have a far better grasp on how prevalent complaints are in our lives, and how they actually do have some sort of utility, but it's not advised to make it a habit to normalize complaining. So like it says here, complaining is a pervasive and potent form of interpersonal communication that arises when self-focused individuals perceive that complaining will allow them to achieve desired interpersonal or intrapersonal goals, when the costs associated with complaining are minimal, or when dissatisfaction is high, like when you didn't get your Burger King correct. Sometimes people complain to express their dissatisfaction, to prompt others to redress their grievances, or both. Just as often, however, people complain to obtain desired interpersonal goals, even when they're not dissatisfied. So the reason that I wanted to bring that up is because sometimes it's just a method of making conversation. You don't even realize that you're complaining. And if that's your strategy or your habit of making conversation is to complain, I'm here to tell you that we are aware of that about you, and that may be the reason that you didn't get invited to the Super Bowl party. So like this says here, there are reasons that we complain. When self-focused individuals perceive that complaining will allow them to achieve desired interpersonal or interpersonal goals. So like if they're complaining to their boss that they want to raise, you know, is a reason or something that's common. Or like it says, when dissatisfaction is high, you know, if you're super hot and somebody doesn't have the air conditioning on in the car, you know, so there are times when it's necessary and it's acceptable. But if you normalize it and it becomes a part of your ongoing style of communicating with people, then it can be something that will become a part of your reputation. And
I do have a couple of people in my life who are persistent complainers. And I got to say that when I reach for the phone, when I call up a friend, I don't call them up. So I think it's really important that you have to start to notice how your complaining makes others feel. Like, do they seem to be tuning out? Or are they highly engaged? If they're highly engaged, maybe they're complainers too. And maybe you should notice how they make you feel.
Right.
But you have to really start to notice when you are complaining, even if you don't feel like stopping, you might want to start to notice how the other person feels and what their reactions are like. And if they sit there and go, yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. You should stop.
Yeah. That's how you know that. That's how you know when people when they get the blank stare and the Homer Simpson eye. If you notice that, you know what I mean? Like, then they're tuning out. That's probably because they're tired of hearing it. You know, like when somebody says, "Oh, how you doing?" You're like, "Oh, can't complain," and then they're like, "Yeah," because nobody wants to hear it. Don't complain.
It's true.
The thing is,
go ahead.
No, you.
When somebody asks you how it's going, and it's not going well, I do think that it's okay to say that it's not going great. But if you kind of balance that with something positive or gracious after that, then you give them the chance to either ask you more about it or move on from it. And you can make it their choice whether they can let you complain or not.
Yeah, and there are times when it's okay to complain, but the moral is to not make it a part of your habitual conversation topics. You know, I think we talked recently about when you talk to people who are not healthy, and every time you talk to them, you know you're going to get a rundown of their bad health situation. And it can discourage you from calling them, even though they're your loved ones, you know. And I have, you know, been the person that every time I've talked to somebody at that time of my life, I had a bad health issue, and Lord knows I've had my share, you know, and continue to. I lost several days this week. Of work because of my health issues. But I don't want to be the person that every time you talk to me, it's like, how are you? Oh man, you know, I lost another day of work. And then that's all we talk about. Do I mention it? Will I mention it? If it's relevant, of course. If you're just honestly, you know, want to know how I'm doing, I'm going to tell you. But I'm not going to, I don't want to be the person that's constantly always complaining about my health. Because the thing is, if I let myself use that, if it's true, and I let myself talk about it, then I'll always be talking about it, because I do always have ongoing health issues. They're like 3 days a week, I have a nurse visiting my house to help me with my health issues. But I don't want to talk about it all the time, because I don't want people to get discouraged by it and not want to talk to me because they know it. Like, donkey, we know you're having these problems. Nobody wants to hear it anymore. You know, I don't want to be the chronic complainer like that, because it doesn't help get you any closer to the problem if you're only complaining about the same old things all the time.
You know, but it's also, the goal isn't to be positive about everything all the time either. You know, you definitely would it would be great to be as positive as possible most of the time. But you can't be positive 100% of the time, because sometimes things aren't so good. But yeah, focusing on solutions can definitely help. I read a very weird stop complaining tip. What do you think about this? Suppose that you know you shouldn't complain, but you can't help yourself. You want to complain. So maybe you can set a time limit for yourself. Like, I'm not going to complain about this longer than 1 minute, you know?
That's
What do you
interesting.
think? Do you think that's still the slippery slope? Like, you shouldn't let yourself go near it? Like, some people can't resist it. They're like addicted to complaining, you know? Maybe it would
That's
help them
funny.
cut back.
It's interesting. I didn't come across that in any of my research, like any set a time limit for complainers. But that's how would you respond if well, I mean, you know, D-Rex, I've spoken to you enough to know that you're not a chronic complainer, although we do share our lives with each other, and some's good, some's bad. It's never come across as though you're just always the one complaining. So maybe it's not a good example to ask you, you know, because you're not a chronic complainer. But
Oh, I've got some
have you
things
ever,
that I complain about regularly, though. And I really should set a time limit for myself because I'm not doing anything to solve those things, to be honest.
oh, that's interesting. So if you're going to complain and you notice that you're talking about them a lot, write it down and fix it. You know, that was the moral of that post is
I don't want
start
to.
taking control over the things that you're complaining about. Yeah, that's the thing. Are there some things that you just enjoy complaining about and you don't want to fix them? There are people, and some people are going to be listening to this and they're going to be like, dang, they're talking about me right now. There are people out there that just
That's a
love to
good
complain about
question.
certain things.
That's a good question. Do you actually want to fix it? And maybe you could ask someone who's deep into their complaint how they plan on fixing it. But yeah, I think that once you get into a certain topic that you love to complain about, and some people I think they love politics for that reason, because it allows them to complain about things they have no control over, just constant fodder for complaints, you know? But how do you plan on fixing it is a useful question.
Yeah. That's the thing that a lot of times people don't want to hear, is that there's what you're complaining about needs to be fixed. Don't just complain about it, actually do something about it. Because, you know, there's reasons that constant complainers don't get return calls. There's constant negativity that has impacts on your relationships, and it can stop you from actually growing in life. If you just are always complaining about it and you're not ever fixing it, then you find yourself being stuck in this vicious circle, you know, like complaining about your job. You've had the same job for 10 years and you're still complaining about it. That if that applies to you, then if you're listening to this and that applies to you, go look at yourself. And if you are guilty of that, you probably are not getting busy living. And hopefully you came to this for some tips and tricks and some encouragement, some enlightenment, and some inspiration towards getting busy living. So if you find yourself being one of the people that are constantly complaining, if you're always at work and you're complaining at work about work to your coworkers, or anytime you go to the family reunion, your family's like, oh, there he goes complaining again, you know, like be aware of that and do something about it, you know, because if you're just always there and you're not making progress, you're not getting busy living. That's for sure. And so,
You know, I have another stop complaining tip. Tell me if you think this one's going to work. When you are tempted to complain, but you actually resist the urge, you should reward yourself.
this is, we've talked about goal setting and rewarding yourself when you achieve small goals. And this kind of falls in line with that and overlaps. And a lot of our concepts do overlap. But I haven't ever heard actually it put in this context where reward yourself for not complaining.
That's because I found the weirdest tips that you can find.
Oh, you have a weird tips reference here, resource?
I like to make it weird. No, it just seems like the tips that I have here are very strange.
Oh.
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it depends on how you're rewarding yourself, right? Like every time I don't complain, I get a pumpkin spice latte. And that's not helpful.
Why not? Pumpkin spice latte sounds good.
So as I complain less, I just get bigger and bigger. Just transferring it. Well, I don't know how, I don't have any tips on how you would reward yourself for choosing not to complain. But if you can think of something that's healthy, a healthy reward, not a pumpkin spice latte. Maybe
Well,
that
let's
might
just think about it. Let's think about it conceptually, because we do having having a more joyful life is the point of getting busy living. And so by limiting your complaints or letting them be a utility, if you are going to complain, scratch that itch. If you're going to complain, do something about that which you're complaining about. And those little things, if you're doing that regularly, eventually you will have less to complain about. And if you don't, notice that and realize that you're a chronic complainer, and take control of the things that you can fix. Take control and fix the things you can.
Rachel, or is it Rochelle or Rachel? Rochelle? Rochelle has a complaint for you. I hate politics. Sorry, that was a complaint. I just tell people I don't talk politics.
Well, there's a reason for that. There's a reason that politics and religion usually aren't welcome at the dinner table for talk, because it's so divisive. And that's okay, Rochelle, that you choose not to talk about politics, because you probably don't run a lot of people off that way, because politics are a divisive issue.
Choosing not to complain, that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because how can you discuss politics without complaining about something? I don't think it's possible.
Well, it seems like just talking about politics is in itself complaining, because usually it's politics are the things that we want to fix and that need to be addressed on a regular basis. And I think politicians get a bad rap. They're usually good people. It's just that the politics in this country for sure are so thoroughly corrupt. So it's probably a good thing that you don't talk about them a lot. And when it comes to we've talked about not making complaining a part of your normalcy, your normal life. It's because that it has these drawbacks. But if you take control of your life and you fix the things that you feel like complaining about, that's a part of the utility. And the result is you're going to get busy living. You're going to be living a more purposeful, deliberate, intentional life, because you are taking control and addressing those complaints and eliminating those issues little by little. And when you make that a part of your habitual behavior, you're going to find over time your life is going to gradually improve. And I feel like that's kind of the kind of lifestyle and mindset that is necessary. If you are the type of person that allows complaining to be a part of your habitual, your habit, then you might notice about yourself that you don't get a lot done, or you're not making a lot of progress in life if you allow yourself to complain. That's where it gets dangerous.
Can we just take a sidestep here for a second? Because I don't feel like we've talked, quite a while about where we are in this journey of next destination. And I'm bringing this up because we are going on a trip this weekend, a little day trip. And I would like to just kind of bring this up to our audience, that we've kind of set this goal that we're going to do as much getting busy living as possible between sunrise and sunset in one day. And we're going to bring you our results afterwards. So after that, where are you going to be on your journey of travels? What number?
This would be month 18, which leaves after February will be 37 more to go. And
it's amazing how you're knocking these down.
Isn't it crazy how fast it's going down? We're in our 30s. When we first started this, didn't it seem like 55 was such a large number?
Yes.
And that it would take forever to get to it?
So we are at 17 right now?
This will be 17 when we get busy living for a day. That will be 17.
Oh, okay. So it's not 17 yet. It will.
Nope,
I'm confused
February
about
will
which
be
one it is, but I just want to tell people about this because maybe it's something that they might want to try this week. Maybe that's an interesting challenge that you can put into your living this week. That's what we're going to try to do. Pick a day where you have time and see how much living you can get done from sunrise to sunset. And if you want to talk about it next week or whenever we end up talking about it, we would really like to hear what you chose to do with that time. Hopefully not complaining. Hopefully not complaining the whole day.
Amen. Yeah, this, I'm glad that you brought that up because sometimes it's helpful to remember what you're doing, why you're doing this, what you're in it for. And for us and for me, I'm reminded regularly. I think about it all the time. But for those of you that are in the audience that might not be aware, this podcast is a part of a project that includes a nonprofit organization that's promoting stem cell therapies. Because in this country, stem cell therapy is not a part of standard healthcare. And in other places in the world, they're far more accessible. And that's a problem because stem cells are proven time and time throughout the course of the past 20 to 40 years when stem cells really was born. There's some gray areas there as far as when the technology really started to take hold. But they are a relatively new part of healthcare or of our medical technology. And but there's no denying their efficacy and the progress that it's being made. And when you use quality tissue stem cell samples, the drawbacks are so minimal. And I'm hopeful that in this second lease on life that I've been granted, which I believe is going to be far longer than my first lease. I only made it 40 years the first time. That I'm dedicated to making this second lease on life that I have worthwhile. And so that all of you that came together to help me come back, get your money's worth. And I chose stem cells because I believe that they are, in the long run, they're going to make pharmaceuticals and so many of the other medical procedures that we take that have so many side effects and risks, they're going to make them obsolete. If you're not familiar with how stem cells work, we have a podcast episode that you can go back and find and look, and we kind of go into it there. But also there is so much information available if you know where to look. And just be careful if you're going to do your own research, be careful to find sources that are reputable sources, because there is a lot of propaganda out there about stem cells, and there's a lot of stigmas about them. Because when they were first discovered, we thought that we needed to farm them from fetuses, and this is not the case. You can get your own stem cells from your own body, or we also are able to get stem cells from umbilical cords, which traditionally throughout human history have just been discarded, and that's like really the best quality stem cells come from that area of something that we used to just throw away. So
it's actually it's tragic how many stem cells are just thrown away.
Yes, it's tragic because we know how useful they are and how many different ailments are out there that can be cured. And that I'm going to go ahead and take a moment now to talk about our guy Schaefer. And the fact that he is an example of someone that we can help. And let me see if I can just get this here. So this footage here is our guy Schaefer. I'm just going to talk about Schaefer has cerebral palsy, and stem cells have a high efficacy towards being able to help people with cerebral palsy to be able to have a little bit more strength. And if you go to hswa.org and donate to this cause, you can get Schaefer one step closer to getting therapy. Like it says here, for $50 or more, reserves you a copy of the Life in a Year of Swedism's book, and proceeds from that go to helping us get Schaefer down to Panama. And then the first 1,000 donors are entered into an adventurous Alaska giveaway. We're going to send you to Alaska for 6 days and 7 nights. And that's all a part of the drive here. And the hope is that by participating in this, that we can help you get to Alaska. That's getting busy living on an epic level. We can get copies of this book into your hands, and the concepts that are contained within are all mindset driven and enlightenment and inspiration to help you live a more purposeful and deliberate life. But most importantly, they're going to help this guy receive potentially life-changing therapy that could help him. Cerebral palsy is it's something that there are thousands and close to millions of people around the planet that are living with cerebral palsy. And stem cells they're something that previously it was an ailment that only therapy could help, but we're showing that stem cells actually can help really minimize the impact. And over time, people with cerebral palsy are showing amazing results with stem cells. So by all means, please do help us support our cause and help us help Schaefer by going to the hswa.org and reserving your copy. And if while you're there, like we showed the video earlier, if you don't need a book or you've already donated to the book, and you have options of just donating straight to the HSWA, or you can go to the Schaefer Squad merch page and order yourself either one of these awesome hoodies. We've got t-shirts and all kinds of other swag there that you can order that are going to help support that cause.
And, it might have sounded like we were complaining about the lack of stem cell support in America, but we're actually trying to do something about it here, right? We're actually trying to get to the solution and try to get stem cells to more people. So in that way, it was productive. It was a productive complaint.
Right. And that's, that's part of it. The thing is that people that are complaining, myself included, it's not that just because it's a complaint that it's a problem. Sometimes it's the first step in the solution is mentioning something that needs addressed, right? So, this subject, bringing it to people's attention, not to become a chronic complainer and to scratch the itch when you're complaining, taking control of that which you can change. And being aware of it. If there's going to be a complaint coming out of your mouth, let it be a productive complaint and identifying an issue that can be solved, and then let it be the first step in solving problems rather than just being a chronic complainer.
Let's think about this in a, well, I guess I don't know if I want to say in a spiritual way, but how sometimes on this podcast we talk about, what's the word I'm looking for? Manifestation, like the things that you manifest in your life with your thoughts and your energy. And if you are a chronic complainer and you're voicing negative thoughts out loud constantly, it's almost like you're asking the universe for more. So you might want to have a second thought before voicing your complaint about something you really don't want any more of. Because the minute it leaves your lips and the minute that energy becomes real, you're saying, hey, universe, this is the thing I want. Bring it to me.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Right?
There are some schools out there that believe that talking about something, the universe doesn't know if you're talking about it positively or negatively, and just mentioning negative can cultivate more negative in your life. I don't know if I really believe in that so much. I think that thinking positive will get positive results. Thinking negative will get negative results. But to your point, if you're gonna mention it in a manner that's going to have it be, useful and be something that you can control. That's why we brought up the serenity prayer earlier. It's talking about having the serenity to accept the things you can't change. If you're accepting them, you can't change them. Don't bother complaining about them. You can't change the weather. You can't change traffic. So don't even bother complaining about it. I mean,
You know,
if it's
you can change the way you're complaining about it. Instead of saying, I don't want this, I don't like this, maybe you could stop yourself and say the thing that you do want more of. Maybe you can take control of your complaining. If you ever notice you're complaining, maybe turn it into the thing that you do want to happen. Then it might become a productive activity.
So I think that's a great way to kind of like wrap things up. So I'm going to keep it real with you. I find, I've said this many times on the show that a lot of the times that these issues that we're talking about on a weekly basis, whether it's a show that we have a guest on where they have a particular aspect of their life that's worth sharing, or if it's not that, it's usually my life or yours or something about life that we've brought up that we're sharing. And a lot of times it is my life. And in this case, this subject was something that I wanted to talk about because I want to hear myself talking about it out loud so that I can remember to not let myself be a habitual complainer, because I am struggling. I'm 6 years into this life now of living a completely different life than what I spent 40 years being used to. And I do find my self-talk a lot of times. I'm complaining to myself about things. And we've had podcasts in the past about letting go. And we've had podcasts in the past about manifesting a positive destiny. And we've had podcasts in the past about setting goals and fixing things. And so all of those other shows, the fact that we've gone through them, they are efforts of mine to help myself not fall victim to those things. And this is another example of that, because I do find myself complaining to myself a lot. I hope that I don't complain out loud a lot. I hope that I don't have a reputation for being a chronic complainer.
No.
I definitely don't get it mentioned to me a lot, but I am consciously aware of that I have a lot of things in my life that I am not happy with. And to myself, I complain about them a lot. I hope that the truth about me is that I am motivated to accept the things I cannot change. And I do have the courage to change the things that I can. And that I am working on becoming wiser every day and knowing the difference. That really is my one of my all-time favorite quotes. I think that in my personal life, there are things about my life that there are a lot of people that are suffering from the same similar, if not identical, issues that I am and have accepted them. And maybe they're wise that they are viewing it as something that they can't change, so they've accepted it. I personally happen to believe that the things about my life that some people have accepted, I refuse to accept. I believe that I will walk again, and I believe that I will beat this injury. So when I complain about it to myself, I hope to continue to let that be me reminding myself to keep at trying to fix it. And
that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, it's just about becoming more mindful of everything, right? That's really what we're trying to do as we progress and grow. And we hope that if you watch this podcast all the way through, that's what you come away with. Just becoming mindful of complaining and how it affects your life and others, and see if you can use one of my weird tricks to get beyond it, or one of maybe the more standard tricks that you mentioned, and just try to solve the problem, scratch the itch, move along,
scratch that itch.
More balanced, become a more balanced and positive person. Let's just see what we can do, right? That's all we can do at any point. Let's see what we can do.
What a wonderful way to bring up next week's podcast episode topic. Can we be the change? We have one of the entries to the Life and Year of Swedism's book that we've chosen to elaborate on. It's a very long one, so we probably won't read the whole post on the podcast, but you can always get the book and you'll see the whole entire post there, or you can pay attention to our promotions and you can see it there. But this particular podcast coming up next week is about being the change that you want to see in the world. There's a lot. We've mentioned politics, and Rochelle here, she's like, she brought up how she's like, maybe I'm talking about politics and I shouldn't be or complaining, but I don't like politics. But the point is that next week, the subject is going to be recognizing that there are a lot of problems going on in this world. And if we're going to be complaining about these problems, let's do something about them. And it starts with us. So if we're going to change, or if we see things in the world that we want to complain about, rather than complaining about them only, let's identify them as problems and then let's try to change them. And if they are problems that are other people that you see, look at yourself and find out if you also are a part of that problem, because that's what it's all about, being the change that we want to see in the world. And I can't wait to come back next week and talk about that. Are you ready for that, D-Rex?
I think so. I think so. All
Awesome.
right. Well,
give me a big old cheese for the thumbnail next week. And for those of you that came and hung out with us this week, thank you for showing up. Thanks, Rochelle. Thanks, Lori. Thanks for the rest of you that were there. D-Rex, any final thoughts?
once again, yeah, excellent conversation. And I'm sure that we're going to have many more this weekend on our adventures. Can't wait to come back next week and talk all about it.
Very much. Thank you. So always remember, we're all in this together. Always remember, no matter the weather, whether sunshine or rain, there's no joy without pain. Always remember, we're all in this together. Can I get a hell yeah?
Hell yeah.
But you gotta believe me, ain't nothing coming easy my way. No, I fucking work, but it's fucking work.